what specific outcomes would you hope to achieve through training in leadership and culture building?
The main thing is to deliver a clear message. And I would say it again, to deliver a clear message. I'm not saying to deliver a good message or a bad message. I'm speaking about clear message. You see, because if it's not clear, so people would start to ask questions. If you need that a mission would be done in a certain time, and you are not clear, the time that you spend on explaining what you meant would miss everything. You see, so just to be clear, the pre-step, the step before clearance is that it has to be clear to you. You have to be absolutely clear with yourself what you're going to do. Who are you? What is your mission? Who is the company? What is the best way to involve all the people in that mission? And I think that great leaders and great companies are those that manage to bring it all together and to cause the people, the workers in the company, to identify with the company core essence.
You know, it's sort of a trivial example, but it's also a real example. Like you said, first of all, if you can't clearly explain something, to me as a teacher, as an English teacher, that says you don't really understand it. So oftentimes here in Japan, they have this, I think I talked to you about this last time, but it's called tatemae and honne. So tatemae means your public face, your sort of polite decorum and conduct you have in public and around others. And honne is your true feelings. And because of that and other cultural things, they try very hard to make sure they don't lose face and to always be polite and everything else, which is admirable in one sense and a barrier in another. And that is, I would teach even like a C-suite executives. It's still just English, but it's very important that they understand it if they're ever going to use it, especially with their job. So does everybody understand? If I just ask a yes/no question, I see this and that smile with a silence and a head shake is kind of Japanese for something like, I think so, or I don't really know, but I'm not going to say so. So what I did was, it relates very much to what you said. I was like, great, since you understand it, please demonstrate that by using it. Even just make a sentence with that word or explain that to us as the class. Now you're the teacher and you instantly know who understood and who didn't. But it's the same thing, right? If you don't understand the message, if you can't explain it clearly, you're not ready because you don't have the depth of understanding you need to pass that on to others. So yeah, totally agree.
I think that I told you that, I think that we spoke about it in our first conversation. I'm learning Japanese right now.
Ah, you did?
I'm learning Japanese, and what I found out is that the Japanese language and the Japanese people are totally different, 180 degrees different from Israelis. You
Interesting.
See? I learned that, for example, in Japan, there are 5-6 ways of polite, very polite, very, very polite, and absolute polite. In Hebrew, Israelis are very straightforward, and they're saying exactly what they think. Sometimes, for example, if you're an Israeli would come to Japan and would behave like in Israel, it would be considered rude immediately, to be rude. But sometimes sometimes if you are straightforward and you say exactly what you think and don't try to hide behind the bush and tell other stories, it helps to be clear, you see?
Yes.
For example, and I think that it derives, all this thing of being straightforward derives from the army, because all the Israelis are doing the army. And in the army, you cannot bullshit. You cannot start to tell stories in the middle of a fight, of a battle. You need to be clear. You need to say exactly what to do, and in very few words, you see? I think it comes from there. I don't know.
Right.
Because
Well,
definitely it's not from the Jewish tradition. The Jewish tradition is to speak a lot and to have debates about the Bible, Gemara, all thing. But
right.
the army is the other side of it.
It's interesting the interaction there between the two different sort of forces, the Jewish religious tradition against the military, where you need, as you said, clear and concise directions, because anything else could mean lives lost. So here in Japan, you're right, they do have those different levels. I believe the highest one is called Koge, and they were so important in history that if you, as an ordinary citizen in Japan, use the wrong form of address to, say, a shogun, they had little hesitation and every right to decapitate you on the spot because you used the wrong form. So mainly, say, I don't know if this is Koge because I just don't know enough about Japanese language, but you might be called Ted-sama or Bar-sama. Sama is one of the most polite forms that you usually get as a customer, especially in sort of a higher class, a department store or something. It's like a green sama, right? They'll call you it like you said, it's just they have these conscious layers. And it's interesting because English has it too, but it's never explicit. But calling somebody Mr. or Mrs. is a less prescribed version of that, but it does exist, especially in business. So let's do the next one here. Number 4 is.
I would add something to that. I think Israel is a very, very interesting, considering the fact that there is those religious people that learn the Bible all the time, and they're keeping on moving and learning chapter after chapter with all those rituals. There is the army people, and there is the high-tech people. Israel leads the high-tech in the Middle East and maybe in Europe. And those three aspects of Israeli people is very interesting because they are so different.
And it would be interesting to find, and maybe that's you, maybe it isn't, but there's probably people who fit in, have their foot in all three circles. They have their biblical scholarship plus their military service, which is mandatory, is it not?
Yes, it is.
Right, and mandatory. So obviously, no matter what you do, you have some military service. And if they happen to be a technical person or work in a technical area when they're in the service, now you got all three. So that would be an interesting interaction to see. So for the next question,